Shane, I told you I'm not doing a cold open today. It's not happening.
Well, that's what is
the
this?
Cold open man's not here today.
What is this then? Gotcha.
Wednesday, and welcome into the PHNX Sun Devils show. Of course, we're coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Make sure you join Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Make sure you visit CircleK.com for details. I am Anthony Totri, joined, as always, by the deli man behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. We told you Rubis, also known as Jose Perez, was not going to be here today. He's just slacking per usual, but it's okay. We've got Peter Boyle joining us later on in the program to talk NIL, revenue sharing, and the House settlement. A lot of really, really interesting points that Peter made, and some just really, really unique perspectives on everything that's changing as it relates to NIL. Make sure you hit that like button, you hit the subscribe button, and you drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. John Pickens in the chat saying, hey, Devil fans. What's up, John? What's up, all Sun Devil fans? This will be somewhat of a solo show today, so any questions, comments, concerns that you have, throw them in the chat. I'll get to them as they come in today, and we'll just vibe. We'll just vibe today. You, me,
I'm
and
into
the deli
vibing.
man. Huh?
I'm into vibing.
You're into vibing? Are you into vibing with an S or a Z?
S.
S?
Wait,
I'm more of a Z guy.
Oh, like vibes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
No?
No.
You're an S
Vibes
guy?
was 2017.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Look, before we get into NIL and all of that fun stuff, which I promise, stick around for that conversation. It is a good one. I want to tell you about an article we have at gophnx.com and through all of ALLCITY. Pretty much that is from Fran Duffy, our NFL draft expert at ALLCITY Network. He just wrote an article on the top 10 quarterbacks in college football heading into this 2025 season. Now, as an expert myself, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right off the bat, we're two experts that have some differing opinions. Now, I think the majority of this article is super, super solid. Highly, highly recommend you go check it out. In terms of Fran Duffy's list of top 10 quarterbacks, I'm going to go ahead and give you the top 5 that he has. Okay, so I'm going to pull back the curtain here. Number 1, no shocker, he's got Arch Manning as the guy as it relates to quarterbacks in college football heading into 2025. Now, he's got a pro comp for every single one of these quarterbacks. Now, this is where I have some issues. Arch Manning, his player comp is Josh Allen. For me, that feels a little optimistic, given the size that Josh Allen is, not just height-wise, but weight-wise as well, and really the style of play. Arch Manning, yes, he's a dual-threat quarterback, but for me, Arch uses more of a speed when he's running versus Josh Allen, who just uses brute force. I don't personally think that Arch Manning has the arm that Josh Allen does. I don't think he'll ever have the arm that Josh Allen does. I mean, we're talking about a top 3, even top 2 quarterback in the NFL right now when we're talking Josh Allen. I've got a separate issue with Arch being 1, but we'll get there after we go through this list. 2 on Fran Duffy's list is Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback at LSU, player comp Tony Romo. I don't hate the player comp, to be completely frank with you. I am not the biggest fan of Garrett Nussmeier's game, as is I don't believe the Deli Man. I don't think the Deli Man is all in favor of Garrett Nussmeier.
Well,
do you think Garrett Nussmeier is top 5 quarterback in college football next year?
Yeah.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
I wouldn't put him 2. We've had this conversation before. His nussing, when he nusses around, it doesn't like it's not worth everything else that he can do.
Yeah.
You know, like the picks on the 1 yard line don't outweigh the great throws he can make and his escapability and his legs. They're close, but to me, I just like, and that's something that can be fixed. So if we're talking about from a draft perspective, yeah, I like him. But if we're talking leading my team into a college football championship, I just don't see it.
I agree with you. And then so number 3 on that list, one of my personal favorite quarterbacks in college football this season, South Carolina's Lenore Sellers at number 3.
You like him
on
lot?
This list. I really do. I like Lenore Sellers. His player comp is a mix between Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz, which is a very lot like one side is
broad.
I guess, huh?
Very, very broad window.
It is. It is very broad window here. So what this tells me is Lenore Sellers, welcome to the Philadelphia Eagles at some point in your NFL career. Lenore Sellers, I think his game is one of the more interesting ones to watch in college football, especially going into this season where it does feel like the SEC is kind of wide open this year. I know everybody wants to say it's going to be Texas. I don't necessarily believe that that's going to be the case. There are a lot of really solid teams in the SEC this year, and it does feel a little bit more balanced. Number 4 on his list is Drew Aller from Penn State. His player comp, Sam Bradford. I actually don't hate that player comp by any means. I do like Drew Aller as a quarterback. He doesn't do anything, in my estimation, that just overly wows you at this level. But he is somebody that is a game manager that is going to win you ball games. And I think Kirk Cousins is another like similar player comp for me. And then number 5 on this list, that's where you see Arizona State's Sam Leavitt. I have no issue with Sam Leavitt being 5 on this list. I'll give you my top 5 quarterbacks a little bit later on in this segment. But my biggest issue with this article in its entirety is Sam Leavitt's player comp. Shane, do you already know the player comp? Did you see it?
Yeah.
The player comp is Andy Dalton. Now, for those of you that don't know about the Red Rifle, he had his quote-unquote prime for the Cincinnati Bengals at one point. It was a fine couple years. It wasn't anything ridiculous. Maybe wasted one of the best wide receivers in the last 15 years in A.J. Green. But to say that Sam Leavitt, after watching what he did last year, that his player comp and basically his ceiling is a guy who was a mid quarterback at best throughout his entire career, never a top 10 quarterback. That we're going with Andy Dalton, but you want to sit here and tell me that Arch Manning, who hasn't played a full season at the helm, his player comp is Josh Allen? What are we doing? And again, Fran Duffy is an expert when it comes to the NFL draft and this type of stuff. I disagree heavily.
I will say, this is not, it is based in like the idea that they're going to be good next year, but it's mainly based in what their projection is in the NFL. Like this is, that's what this top 10 is. So again, you don't have a problem with them being 5. I have a problem with player comps in general.
Yes, like which we know.
Yeah, they just don't. They don't do anything. There's only everyone is unique in their own right. Sure, somebody can play like some certain type of player, but when you hear player comp, people assume that they're going to transition to that, and that's never going to be. Sure, this player might shoot the basketball like Desmond Bain, but they're not going to have Desmond Bain's career path.
Exactly, and that's something that needs to be, I think, put out there a little bit more when it comes to those player comps.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of a teaser because Rubus and I did trending that's going to go out this weekend on Sam Leavitt. But I personally think a better player comp for Sam Leavitt's game, again, to what Shane said, not exactly what his career path is going to look like. But I think a Justin Herbert, Bo Nix player comp is more in the realm of possibility and more of what Sam Leavitt's game is like to me. The arm, the accuracy, the ability to move with the legs. And for me, it's no coincidence that Sam Leavitt's game reminds me of those two because guess what? Marcus Arroyo, the current OC at Arizona State, he was the OC at Oregon with Justin Herbert. Kenny Dillingham When he was at Oregon, who was his quarterback? It was Bo Nix. And now you're telling me you got Kenny and Marcus here in Tempe at Arizona State, and they got a product in Sam Leavitt's game who mirrors those two? That makes more sense to me than Andy Dalton for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm sorry. It does for me. Another problem I have with this list is the fact that there is no Cade Klubnik on this list. There is, but not in the top 5. That's something for me that, again, is a little egregious. Like, all love to Lenore Sellers, all love to Garrett Nussmeier. Those two guys didn't lead their teams to the college football playoff. So, and this is the way I evaluate it versus the way Fran and I know others do. I am somebody that, like, the proof is in the pudding. If you've done something, then I'm going to evaluate you like that. I'm not the potential, this, blah, 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 blah. Sam Leavitt took a team to the college football playoff. Top 5 quarterback. Drew Aller took a team to the college football playoff. Top 5 quarterback. Cade Klubnik took a team to the college football playoff. Arch Manning, he was on a college football playoff team. He wasn't QB1, and I know there's a ton of people and pundits that love Arch Manning. I'm not saying that I don't think Arch Manning is going to be the dude at one point. I'm not saying that I don't think Arch Manning is going to be a really good quarterback. But at what point do we put somebody that's done it ahead of somebody that has got the potential to do it?
But again, I think that's the whole point of this article is
it's top 10 quarterbacks going into college football next year.
Yeah, but it's looked at from a draft perspective. Like, it's all about projections.
Yeah.
In the NFL. So I think if you're looking
then we need a new headline.
Well, yeah. I will also say Andy Dalton, yes, at 30 plus, 32, 34, what is he, 37, 36 now?
He's
probably
old now. Man, he might not be that old.
Yeah, he's not that old, I don't think. He's probably 34, 35.
I think 35 is what my guess is going to be here.
Like, when he was young,
37.
When he was young, he could move.
Yeah.
And Sam Leavitt isn't like breakneck speed move. He's more elusive than people think. Yes. And I think everyone's going to realize that this year. He wasn't asked to use it a ton last year, and he did use it on the biggest stage heavily in that third and fourth quarters. He didn't do it a lot of the year. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sure people know yet. You know who he actually kind of reminds me of a little bit, and this might piss some people off. I can't
piss anybody off more than Andy Dalton.
Well, I think it might.
Okay.
I get a little Brock Purdy from his game.
Okay.
The way he moves, his decision making has been better, and he's got way more like raw talent.
Yeah.
But they play a similar style.
I don't hate that comp. Well,
I hate all comps. So
yeah. I mean, that's fair. I do think that Sam is a little bit more athletic. In a last point, because again, I want to get a point across that I think Fran does phenomenal work here at ALLCITY, and he is an expert. The take that Sam Leavitt won't have the cannon of an arm or doesn't have the cannon of an arm that Arch or some of these other guys have, in my mind, is just like, you haven't seen it. I'm telling you from somebody that has seen every single practice of Sam Leavitt at Arizona State, he's got just as good of a deep ball. He's got just as strong of a cannon that Arch Manning allegedly has. He does. I really, again, like, I get it. People love X, Y, and Z players. Sam has got that arm. He like, in terms of deep ball, like, he can, if we're talking just pure, I can throw it this far, Sam has got that.
Yeah. All I'm going to say is if it smells like poop and it looks like poop, it's probably poop. Mm-hmm. Like, that's, well, I guess
I'm
that's
curious to where
that's a bad
you're
comparison.
Yeah.
If it smells like cookies and looks like cookies, it's probably cookies.
It's probably a cookie, yeah.
And that's what Arch Manning's arm is. Like, this doesn't just happen overnight. People aren't just like, it's that good.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, when your last name's Manning, like, you're probably going to have a great arm.
It's that good. So I don't think it's fair to say that Sam Leavitt's arm is the same as Arch's. It's just not.
Again, I haven't seen Arch in practice, and nobody has seen Arch in a number of consistent games. Right, I'm telling you from what I've seen at Arizona State watching Sam Leavitt. Mm-hmm. If that's the conversation, that Arch has a ridiculous arm and Sam doesn't or won't ever get there, I am firmly on the opposite side of that argument.
Yeah, I know. I've talked to Fran about this before, but he actually put it in the article. He's a big fan of quarterbacks exhausting their eligibility. he thinks that's how it should be, and
Yeah.
I agree with him.
Yeah.
Like,
especially now with NIL.
what if Bo Nix went into college after Auburn? He would probably be out of the NFL.
Yeah.
Like,
or he wouldn't. I mean, he wouldn't be a first round pick.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But like the development standpoint, it just wouldn't be close.
100%.
So I also wouldn't hate Sam staying another year just because. Obviously, we'd love it, but like ASU fandom aside, just to see him develop a little more, I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, I think it would 100% be awesome. I love that we got BC, we got Daniel Berry in here, we got Sharon in here as well. Before we move on, this is what I've got for my top 5 quarterbacks. This is something that we put out, I believe, months ago at this point. This is not in any particular order. This is just the 5 quarterbacks that I have as my top 5. You want to put them in order on the spot here?
Let's do it.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. If I had to give you a top 5 quarterbacks right now in order, I'm going to go at number 5. I am going to go Drew Aller.
Okay.
At number 4, I'm going to go Lenora Sellers.
Okay.
At number 3, I'll go Cade Klubnik.
Okay.
At number 2, I'm going to say Sam Leavitt, and it's more of a 1B for me. And then number 1, I'll go ahead and I'll give you Arch Manning.
You're putting Arch number 1?
I'll put Arch number 1.
After all the things you said?
After all of the things I've said,
really?
I'm going to put it's more of a 1A, 1B to me. It's not like, oh, we've got a 1 and a 2. I think this is something that is honestly interchangeable. I don't think there are a lot of people that are going to feel that way. Maybe more so in Tempe. But actually, you know what? I'm going to stand on business. Sam Leavitt is my number 1 quarterback going into college football. Arch Manning is 2. Again, 1A, 1B, whatever. Then I'll give you Cade Klubnik at 3, Lenora Sellers at 4, Drew Aller at 5. How's that sound?
Yeah.
What would you say out of those 5? Or are those not your 5?
Well, they're not my 5. Arch is 1. Probably Cade 2. Sam 3. Aller, Aller 4, Nussmeier 5, Sellers 6.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that.
I as much as I talk about the Nuss bus being a rocky ride, it does get you where you need to go sometimes.
Yeah,
but sometimes there's a horrible accident and people have died.
The bus breaks down.
Yep.
Yeah,
and there are fatalities.
Dear Lord.
No, just casualties.
Just casual. I mean, same thing.
No. A casualty is also an injury. So if there's like hundreds of casualties.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
The more you know.
Guys, let me know your top 5 quarterbacks in the chat. Also, make sure you head to gophnx.com to check out that full article that Fran Duffy has done. I do believe that it is behind the Die Hard paywall, but lucky for you, we have a Die Hard sale going on right this second, an intro offer of $36. Make your move tonight and tomorrow. You've got the NBA draft, and Lord knows we have a ton of diehard only NBA draft content over on gophnx.com. The Suns picking at number 10. What are they going to do? Who are they going to pick? Make sure you sign up to become a diehard. It is super, super easy, and you're going to get a ton of stuff when you do sign up. What's your favorite part about being a diehard, Deli Man?
The discount on events.
Yeah.
Like the discount I got on my birthday party
That's
that
fair.
I paid for.
I love it. I love it. Make sure you had to go.
I saved $60.
Did you save 60 bucks?
60 whole buck. Well, 120 if you're counting Leah's ticket.
Wow.
$120.
Wow.
For being a PHNX diehard. So I actually told my friends that are buying tickets to go to my pool party, which is July 3rd. There's only like 5 tickets left, I think. So buy those tickets. Go phnx.com/events. My friend was like, do you have like a discount code or something I could use? I'm like, unless you're a diehard, you don't get a discount. But with our intro offer, if you buy a diehard membership and then buy the ticket, you're actually saving money because it's only $36 for the year and you get $60 off.
Wow.
So you're saving that. So you're like, it's better to become a diehard than buy the tickets and then not become a diehard at all, because you also get a free shirt or a hat.
Every single year. Every single year. Go phnx.com/intro to take advantage of that offer. Look, we have got a ton to still discuss. NIL, house settlement, and so much more on the other side of this quick break. Guys, if you follow us at PHNX Sun Devils, I hope you saw the VMe video, the free throw video that we put out. This is a perfect opportunity for me to tell everybody that I think Rubis only won because it was a tiebreaker and we had to do the final shot here in the office.
Yeah, a hand up. If I would have counted properly, you probably would have won.
I feel like I could have got it done. But regardless, I lost. And I paid up on VMe. If you don't know what we're talking about, VMe is a first of its kind person-to-person betting app. There is finally an app where you guys can bet with anyone, anything, anytime. They're a proud partner with us, and it's an awesome new way to bet. Now, your wagers can be free. They could be for money. They could be for pretty much anything under the sun. No more chasing the cash when you make a bet with somebody. Definitely download the VMe app and play today using code PHNX. It's available on the App Store and Google Play. VMe, anyone, anything, anytime. Now, when you're winning all of those bets, you're going to need a place to put your money. There's no better place than Desert Financial Credit Union. If you're an Arizona sports fan specifically, you know there's no better place to do your banking than with DFCU. I've said it since January. I'm trying to get my finances in order, and thanks to our friends at DFCU, I'm taking a step every single month. And the big reason why is because they've got somebody at DFCU to answer all of the questions that I have. If I've got a question, or if you guys have a question about a checking account, saving account, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, anything else, they have got somebody that is a part of a dedicated team to make sure you get that question and all of your other ones answered. Plus, when you open a free checking account online, get this, you're going to get $200 in bonuses. Just giving you money at this point. Make sure you get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. Will dropping his top 5, saying Klubnik 1, Leavitt 2, Sellers 3, Manning 4, Robertson 5, and Nussmeier 6. Sharon just with the one of one here, saying Sam Leavitt number 1. I love it. I love it. Sharon also saying we need more diehards in the Discord. Look, we got a great pack of diehards in the Sun Devil community. Like, we need to turn that into a whole ass zoo at this point. There you go. There's a diehard right there.
Diehard dog.
The diehard dog?
Yeah, there's a dog in our Discord.
Is it that same dog?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the dog's name? Or just diehard dog?
Dog.
Okay. I thought we could be a little bit more creative.
The dog. We
dog.
call him TD.
TD.
T-Dizzle.
Okay, sure. Why not?
Tizzy Dizzy.
Look, before
That's a good one.
we get to NIL.
It sounds like a defunct Teletubby. Tizzy Wizzy.
I can't do it.
Somehow when Eric leaves, these shows get more off the rails.
They do. Well, it's because it goes back to its roots with you and I.
That's and the roots were poisoned.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they were poisoned, or they were tainted. They were tainted roots.
How? By what?
The Jelly Bellies.
All right, we need to move on.
Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Let's give an answer to a question that I've been seeing a lot of on social media in the Die Hard Discord. And that is, what happened to Israel Briggs, the former Arizona State tight end commit, who was at one point one of the highest rated, if not the highest rated commit in Arizona State's 2026 class. He took a visit to Michigan some time ago, and shortly after that, there was a decommitment from ASU. And he made his decision just the other day on where he's going to be spending the next 4 years once he's done with high school. And he chose Miami over LSU in his final decision. So he ultimately didn't even end up committing to Michigan, which really started a whole bunch of just discourse, I'll say, around where he was going to ultimately commit to, if he was going to stay at ASU, what he was going to do. I want to get it out there that I think Israel Briggs is going to be a hell of a player. I'm not somebody that wants to sit up here and knock a high school tight end that opted to choose a different school. But what I will say to the ASU community is you are set at tight end. You are good now. You are good for the future at this position.
I'm going to start a rumor that they traded him.
They traded him to Miami.
Yep.
Just cash considerations coming back?
No,
they're getting something else.
Mm-hmm.
What are they getting?
Carson Beck.
I don't want it. Take it back.
They're getting Cam Ward's legacy.
Super yacht? They're
Yeah.
getting Cam Ward's legacy.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, it's not tangible, so.
Okay, sure. Well, we'll put a pin in Cam Ward's legacy at this point. But in terms of the tight end position for ASU, everybody knows you got Shimon Mateer, who was an all-conference tight end last year. I think he's due for another big year. He was Sam Levitt's security blanket in 2024. There's no telling what he could do in 2025 with a deeper wide receiver room around him. In another year in this system. Not to mention, you got Kamari Anderson, the former Kentucky tight end who transferred to ASU a lot faster than people think. You've got AJ Ia, the guy as it relates to the future of this position at ASU. I mean, he's a monster already. I think he's going to be a really special talent in Tempe for a long, long time. You got Jaden Fortier, somebody, a developmental guy at tight end who at one point was the cream of the crop, and I believe the 2024 recruiting class. Still expect really, really promising things from him ultimately as his career plays out at ASU. But if that's not enough, Cole Harpel, you are set blocking at Arizona State. You got your blocking tight end. And then even in the upcoming recruiting classes, right? Like you have Hayden Vircher, one of the highest rated, again, commits for Arizona State in that class of 2026. So to be able to get Hayden Vircher, I know you would have loved to have Israel Briggs paired with Vircher in Ia and Fortier for the long term, but you're fine at tight end. Ultimately, another name that we've been telling you to keep an eye on in an year or two over the next few weeks is Landon Meary, a tight end out of Ohio. He's set to announce his final decision in the coming weeks, I believe July 10th or 11th, potentially. And Arizona State is in his Final Four among some of those other big name schools. I believe Washington is in that Final Four too. So just keep an eye on Landon Meary over the next several weeks. And again, yes, Israel Briggs, it would have been nice. He chose Miami. He chose the U over LSU. Arizona State doesn't have to play Miami, so you don't have to worry about it. And regardless, the Sun Devils are going to be just fine at tight end for a long, long time, and that's because you also got Jason Mons. You got Jason Mons as a tight end coach. You are going to be you're going to be cool as a cucumber at the tight end position. I promise you, it's going to be good. Let's see. Will saying rumors are saying that a wide receiver commit is doing the same, not going to Miami though. I know there have been some people to raise eyebrows, I believe, at Nayland Scott, who I think went on a visit to Nebraska. I haven't heard or seen anything as it relates to what he's going to do at this point. As far as I know, he's still committed to Arizona State. So we will see what happens as the weeks and the months continue to go on. Again, I highly encourage all of you that if there is something that changes with a commit or a recruit, don't bash them on social media, on the internet. These are high schoolers making big life-changing decisions. If they ultimately decide something else, then they decide something else, and just wish them the best. B's asking a couple questions saying, how do you think Kenny feels about that, not having the most funds possible and all? Let's see. We're talking about ASU. So B says, boys, how do you feel about ASU allocating a portion of the house settlement to the other sports? It's certainly unorthodox. I think as it relates to ASU's position on this whole thing, I don't want to speculate. We are going to get the opportunity to talk to Graham Rossini tomorrow. So maybe we'll have an answer for you on why that was, in his personal thoughts on the entirety of it. But ultimately, like, yes, football and basketball are the sports in college athletics. But we know ASU has such a wide variety of sports, whether that be Olympic sports. Like this is an athletic program that wants to win championships in everything, not just in football and basketball. Yes, again, those sports are the moneymakers. They're the revenue builders for ASU. But at the end of the day, like, you want to be really good in baseball. You want to be really good in swim and dive. You want to be really good in volleyball and all those other things. So I'm certainly excited to see ASU compete at a really high level in all of these sports for a long time. What do you think, Deli-Man?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how the landscape's going to keep changing. You're on a ever terraforming mountain that is the NCAA. Like, it's not gonna, nothing's going to to change. The Rossini press conference tomorrow, sharing availability in the morning, so we'll have that stuff for you for the 1 p.m. show.
Yeah.
So
hopefully a one-on-one. Hopefully a one-on-one too after that. So we'll see.
Wow.
We'll see what we can conjure up from
Totri promising a one-on-one.
I didn't promise a one-on-one. Look,
Chad, did you hear him promise
anytime I could stand next to the tallest, most prominent Sun Devil possible, I'm going to take that opportunity. And Graham Rossini is that guy.
Do you want me to stand next to you?
No. Graham Rossini is he's a very tall man. You want to stand next to me as we get into the ads here? You want to do that? Here we go. This is for everybody listening on audio. This is why you should always watch, because I mean, look at this. This is the guy right here, the Daily Man. Kind of like the what is it, the Powerpuff Girls, where you never actually see, who is it, the mom? Is that what it is? Yeah, this is PHNX Sun Devils' mother right here, the Daily Man, just concocting sandwiches as always. But look, I know, and it's perfect, Bees, that you bring up the house settlement and all that fun stuff, because we do have a great interview with Peter Boyle, the founder of Activate Sports Management, that we are going to get to after our final break. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I don't know if you know this, but it is extremely hot outside at all times here in the Valley. That is why you should make sure you get yourself a smart thermostat, because it can help manage your energy bills. I don't know if you guys know this. I didn't know this until we actually got on board with APS, that nearly half of energy costs come from cooling and heating. With summer here, it's time to get smart about saving. Smart thermostats can work with your APS rate plan to maximize comfort and convenience while minimizing your energy costs. I actually have a smart thermostat at my house. It is awesome. It feels, first and foremost, it does its job, which I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to summertime, you have a bunch of thermostats, you have air conditionings, you have all that type of stuff that it's just funky, or maybe it doesn't work. But if you're on the APS time of use plan, use your smartphone or device to automatically adjust the thermostat to take advantage of lower cost off peak hours. Find instant rebates, discounts, and special offers on smart thermostats, energy efficient appliances, and more at marketplace.aps.com. Must be an APS customer and pay shipping and taxes. Other restrictions apply. Go to marketplace.aps.com for more information. And look, we're talking home improvement, okay? You got your APS smart thermostat in your house, cool in your house, cool in your apartment, and that's the perfect time for a floor lay as you lay down on your Empire Today floors. Isn't that right, Daily Man? He's just shaking his head. He's just shaking his head, yes. He's vibing on the Empire Today floors, and you guys can too. Same as ASU, has its home floor, its home court, its home ice. You got to have your home floor right at your apartment, your house, your condo, whatever. Look, we tell you about all the times that we've been to the big box stores. I know you guys can relate. Where you go, you got a bunch of questions, you can't find anything. Before you know, you blink, it's been several hours, nobody's helped you, and you don't know what to do with your floors. That is not the case when it comes to Empire Today, because they live and breathe flooring, and they're going to be with you every step of the way. It is a whole different ball game. Plus, schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. PHNX listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHNX. You heard it right. It's not a typo. $350 discount with code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/PHNX for full details. Like button. Subscribe button. 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. We've been teasing it. It's on the thumbnail. It's in the headline. I came into today, Wednesday, June 25th, 2025.
A dumber person than you are right now.
Correct. I had a lot of questions about NIL. I had a lot of questions about the house settlement. I had even more questions about revenue sharing and how it all works, especially as it relates to Arizona State. But thankfully, I had the chance to catch up with my good pal, Peter Boyle, again, the founder of Activate Sports Management. And he explained everything to me like I was an 8th grader, and it made me feel a whole of a hell lot better. And he is here to answer all of your questions as well. Take a look. This is Peter Boyle, NIL, revenue sharing, and the house settlement. We're joined now by Peter Boyle, the founder of Activate Sports Management, a registered NIL agent. I feel like the list goes on and on. This man is my go-to for any questions as it relates to the NIL world. Peter, before we get into the weeds of NIL, just have you had any time to like just sit back and relax over the last month, given all the changes in this realm?
I mean, it seems like I think we joked around before you and I like this thing changes every 6 months. Really, now it's like every 6 weeks, every 6 days, every 6 hours. Like it just never stops. So it's hard to keep up with, but it's an exciting time.
I'm curious for you before we get into some of the newer stuff. Just kind of a more broad question in terms of NIL. How have you really seen it evolve and change since you started the Activate Sports Management to where it is now?
Completely different in every way. I think number one, the money is different, right? It has escalated, especially this past sort of 3 or 4 months as the House settlement approached, right? Like the numbers that you're seeing for particularly football, men and women's basketball are astronomical. I mean, unbelievable numbers that we can get into lately. Yeah, that blow my mind compared to where it was a few years ago. And then I think also just the fact that businesses want to get involved now in a level that they didn't before. So it used to sort of be like I wouldn't call it a charity, but like, hey, we'll get you a couple of gift cards, we'll do this, we'll do that. Like it'll just be a little thing here and there. Now it's real money, and I think businesses view it as like a real investment and real marketing dollars. So that's shifted. It's matured. I think I would say over the last couple of years.
Obviously, like you mentioned, the money has kind of changed and gone up specifically for football. Is it a similar trend for men's basketball, baseball, women's basketball, or has it kind of teetered off for some sports?
Teetered off for anybody, but I would say that you're seeing football and men's and women's basketball become sort of a class of their own, where those three sports specifically are in a different ballpark than everybody else is when it comes to the dollar amounts. But I also think you're seeing a trend that I find interesting, which is that like some of the Olympic sports, or let's say softball, volleyball, baseball, track and field, um, I think used to just be, even as much as a year ago, kind of just okay with whatever they got, right? Like, hey, whatever you can do for us, we're cool. Now you're seeing some of those athletes turn down deals that involve, a few hundred or a few $1,000s because they're like, sorry, I'm worth more than that. Which I actually think is a very interesting change.
Yeah. I think in terms of like just the drastic changes that we've seen here, right? And obviously you're more ingrained in that than we are. Like it's been really really interesting to see, especially when it comes to football and the men's basketball, and now even I feel like more so like women's basketball, where it was like the transfer portal when it first started. It still felt like a little weird for somebody to like, oh, transfer, and then maybe you don't hear too much about the NIL. But I mean, as you deal with, I feel like every transfer portal cycle, there are like immediate questions of like, okay, when I get in the portal, what is my worth realistically, right?
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if this continues as the House settlement goes into effect. If it's the same thing next year, but particularly this past year for like, well, I really say the past 3 months for men's and women's basketball and football. Those three portals specifically, like the numbers are unreal, and the way that it's approached is crazy. So I don't know that a lot of people totally know this or understand this, or nor would they be able to. But like, you've got coaches that will just straight up call me and be like, "Hey, this person, what's the number? How much?" And you're like, "Whoa, did you even have you even talked to them? Like, do you even know if they like your school? Like what? Like unbelievable. Just like off the rip, like what's the number?" And when you're talking about like women's hoops, you're talking a good power four player, 300 to $800,000 easily. Men's hoops is north of that, and then football is different because the roster sizes are so big. So I think people anticipate that's like the biggest number. It's actually not, because you have 85 to 110 people you've got to appease. So those numbers come down a little bit, different when you're talking about quarterbacks, et cetera. But yeah, I think it's crazy to see how much it's evolved from being like, well, we could kind of do this, or when you get to campus, let's talk about money, to being straight up head coach to agent. Here's the number. What do you think?
Yeah. Is there a sport that you've seen where it is maybe a little bit more direct, where it's like, okay, what's the number? Let's get this done.
Interesting to see by conference and by school, right? So like you've got these organizations that are like super mature. So I would actually say The ACC, surprisingly, I guess to some people, is probably the most equipped right now to be the most like forward thinking. They've got real general managers. Like we're talking about people who have been assistant GMs at the NBA, MLB, NFL level for years, who are now these college basketball specific GM, sometimes football, but you're seeing a lot more in basketball. I think because the rosters are so small and so it's so much like intricate to manage the caps and like who's getting paid what and who's playing versus football. Again, you've got so many people. But I think the ACC specifically is like super advanced when it comes to like the contracts you're seeing from them are real professional contracts. So like I represent one professional athlete. She's a volleyball player, used to be at ASU, now she's a pro. And her pro contract is no different than these NIL contracts. Like they are mirror when it comes down to like we're talking about pay for performance, right? Now I know they say there's no pay for play, but I'm being real with you here. Like these have in it, like if you're ACC Player of the Week, that's $5,000 more. If you were all ACC first team, 10 grand more. If your team makes it to the college football playoff, 20 grand more. Like these are real professional contracts. Now that's not true across the entire Power Four yet, but like you're seeing that's like the right side of like these are real pro sports agreements. On the other side, you still have some schools, like I said, who are straight up literally calling and being like, "What's the number? Like, give me the number, and we're good." Which I find interesting because, like, as an agent, I would never do that, right? Like, and that's where I say they're sort of on the less mature side. Is like, if they're saying to me, "Give me your number," well, if you're coming into that call, right, you're a head coach, right, and you think, "All right, well, I think I can get Anthony Totri for 300 grand," and you ask me, the agent, "What's your number?" Yeah, if I say 150K, well, I just cost my client you 150 grand because I just threw a number out, right? Where in your head as a coach, you were thinking 300K, I'm done. But if I say 700K and I try to get a little too cute with it, well, now they might walk away and I just cost you the opportunity because maybe you wanted to go to that school, right, as my client. So it's very much an interesting act where like you see these sort of very advanced GMs. They know what to do. They understand this. They get how to play the game. And then you see some head coaches, and we're talking like big schools, who just aren't a mature enough organization yet. They haven't wrapped their head around it, and they're sort of playing this game that they don't know how to play. And so it's a very interesting landscape. But we can go into if you want like what's actually in these revenue share agreements. But they're it's quite different than it was a few years ago.
Yeah, it's so wildly interesting. I definitely want to get to the house settlement and all of that stuff, but an interesting point that I think that you've made in terms of like the contracts, that there's incentives and these look like real pro contracts. What have you seen, if at all, in terms of breaking these contracts? Are there multi-year contracts that you've seen? Is it usually just like, okay, 1 year and then we'll renegotiate at the end of the year? And like, how does the transfer portal really factor into that whole thing?
I think it's a really interesting topic because I see this a lot from like fans or just online or in general, my friends who aren't in the business. Like, oh, well, aren't we going to start to see multi-year agreements or like 2 years or 4 years? And you could. I mean, I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but I will tell you that I had quite a few clients this past cycle, particularly in basketball, but one or two in football, where we offered, hey, we want a 2 year, right? Like, hey, they want to come here. This is where they want to be. They want to win championships. They're happy. They don't plan on transferring again. Let's do, and I'm just making these numbers up, but let's do 2 years, 500K, right? We don't care how you slice it. So if you want to do 400K year one, 100K year two, we're good with that. Like we just want 500 guaranteed over 2 years. And the answer across the board was no way. And the reason was, what if they're not as good as we think they are? Right. So that's where I think people don't totally get that the transfer portal, and you guys probably do, right? Because you're in it enough, but like this is a two-sided thing, right? Most people in the portal, well, not maybe not most, but a good chunk of people in the portal are there because they were told to be there.
Yeah.
And that's so you see that now with the house settlement, with NIL, with rev shares, like that's bleeding down into roster management, roster construction. Is like these coaches don't want to commit another 100K to you next year because what if you're not good enough, right? And so they want that 100K for somebody else. And so they would rather be like, hey, well, we'll give you 300 this year and 300 next year if you're good enough. And yeah, that costs us 6, but we guarantee we have somebody on the roster next year that we like and is a good fit and that we think it's worth the money, versus how about we try you out for a year? If it doesn't work, we'll spend that somewhere else. So I think that's a very interesting thing that I'm not sure that people are totally grasping yet. Is that like, sure, do athletes want to transfer and make more money and get the best opportunity? Some do, not all. There are plenty of people who are Sun Devils today because they want to be, not because it's the best offer, right? And same for every other school. It's not unique to ASU, but there are plenty who are on 1 year deals because the school wants them to be.
That's such an interesting like double-edged sword that I feel like some of these programs are going to have to figure out long term, right? And especially when we talk like more specific to like ASU football, right? Like the mantra that Kenny and this staff have kind of ushered out there is like, we want guys that want to be Arizona State Sun Devils. So what kind of gives in that conversation, right? Whereas like, okay, these guys want to be Arizona State Sun Devils, but maybe they're not willing long term to do a 2-3 year deal because there is that question of like, well, what does your development look like? Versus the other side of that coin is, okay, I get somebody, like I know exactly what I'm getting in, an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, a linebacker that was here the year prior. So that is certainly super, super interesting. Again, like this NIL stuff is really just like, I feel like the tip of the iceberg. Of course, the house settlement and revenue sharing is going to make your life, I imagine, 10 times more tricky than maybe it already is as it relates to NIL. I think we've tried to explain specifically the house settlement and revenue sharing to our audience a number of times. Sometimes it still feels like maybe we miss something or we leave something out. So I'd love to hear it from you because I know you were in the weeds of it all. But if you could explain the house settlement and kind of what that means, and then revenue sharing, maybe on like an 8th grade level, and this is more so for me, just so that everybody can kind of grasp what this means for college athletics.
Not make it like super legalese because I know that puts people to sleep. But like broadly speaking, I think everybody probably knows, but just to make sure we're on the same page, like, so the house settlement comes out of a lawsuit from Grant House and Sedona Price. Grant was an ASU swimmer. Sedona was a TC women's basketball player who sued based off of antitrust versus the NCAA back in 2020. So that was actually before the 2021 ruling from the Supreme Court that allowed both Alston and NIL, right? Prior to that, and I think it's like, I don't want to get crazy in the weeds, but I do want people to understand that this is all based off what's called antitrust law. So I use this example and hopefully it resonates. And I'll make it quick, but like antitrust law basically means groups of people can't conspire, collude, get together in order to stop a competitive advantage in the marketplace. So really quick, if you're a software engineer and you work for Google, right? Let's just say you make $100,000 a year. And you're good at your job and you're valued in the marketplace. And so Amazon hires you for $150,000. And then a few months later, you've proven to be great. You're a good software engineer. And then Facebook hires you for 200 grand, right? So now you're coming up in the marketplace. Your value is being recognized. Your talent's being recognized. You're making more money. Better for you, better for your family. Let's say the executives at Google, Facebook, and Amazon, they get together and they say, hey, I don't like this whole software engineer salary thing. It's going up way too much. I hate competing with you guys for the talent. I'd rather just run my business, not replace software engineers every 6 months. Can we all just agree that the cap for a software engineer is $150,000? Let's none of us hire anybody for more than that. And they all say, sounds good, right? That's an antitrust violation. We have got together and limited somebody's ability to earn on the free market. It's no different when it comes to NIL, right? So you are saying, hey, I'm a good volleyball player. I'm a great cornerback. I'm an awesome shooting guard. Like the value on me is being placed higher and higher by these schools. I have my ability to transfer to go make more money. But the NCAA historically was saying, no, you can't. All you get is a scholarship and you can get tuition, but you can't get any money. Mm-hmm. And then it sort of changed into like, well, you can get NIL, but not this amount. And now it's sort of at this cap level, right? So that's like the whole thing, as we talk about this in the next few minutes, it's all based off antitrust. So just remember that in the back of your head. So even with the house settlement, there's still a lot of holes when it comes to that stuff. But the house settlement basically said, hey, we are suing because we think this is an antitrust violation. It went into settlement 4 years later, 5 years later, it's now settled. And what that means is there's sort of two parts coming out of it. The first is the original point of the suit, which is back pay, or what's called damages class. So that's 2.75 billion over the next 10 years that the NCAA pays, not the schools, to any athlete that competed, any athlete in any Division I program from 2016 until September of 2024. Now that number is all made up in a formula. It doesn't make sense in a lot of ways, but basically each athlete has a number. So like if you were a swimmer from 2017 to 2019, you get X. If you were a football player, you get Y. Now that's already on hold because 3 days after it was approved, there was a Title IX injunction filed by 8 former female athletes saying that's not fair. We're not getting as much money as we should. Yeah. So that number is already on hold. Does that make sense before we go into the injunction piece? For everybody. So the whole point of the lawsuit, that whole $2.75 billion that was supposed to get paid out July 1st, pause until that case is adjudicated. Wow. And so that could be years. So that's a whole other thing. The second part, which I think people are much more interested in, and your audience probably is what's called the injunctive relief class, which is revenue share, like the future amount of money. Yeah. So that is each school, Division I, gets in year one, $20.5 million. I'm sure people know that number by now. And then that's up to the school to raise that money. Come from any revenue stream that they want. It could come from ticket sales. You've seen some schools put on already a tuition sort of athlete tax, which I think a few schools put out the other day to pay for that. It can come from strategic partnerships. So think like Mountain America or Desert Financial or any of those, right? It can come from any revenue stream whatsoever up to each school to pay that amount of money. And then there's like roster limits and scholarship allotments and all kinds of other stuff that was never intended to be a part of it that's in this future facing thing. So 2 parts. I think the most important thing probably for normal people to understand is that I think of NIL today as like NIL means players get paid money. Yeah. In the future, there's 2 different categories: revenue share and then NIL. They're totally separate now. And so NIL in the future does not just mean players get paid money. It means true business deals from third parties that have some level of analysis or compensation review on them that they didn't have before. But they're very different things.
Wow. Yeah, so just to clarify again for everybody, the revenue sharing comes from the university itself, and NIL moving forward comes from local partnerships, brand deals, etc.
2 totally different things.
Gotcha. And as it relates to the revenue sharing, and I guess more so on the NIL side, you bring up a point in terms of like it's got to. I don't even remember the wording of it that from either the article that I read, but like the NIL deals moving forward have to show there's got to be some sort of like partnership to where it's not beneficial to the business is the wrong word, but it like the athlete has to do something for the business in a sense. Is that correct?
Always been like the sort of like quid pro quo has always been part of it, right? So you've always had to do something in exchange for whatever NIL dollars you were getting. But that has always been unregulated and sort of not reviewed. So like, for example, nothing previously up until now would have stopped you from paying an athlete, let's just say $20,000 and they could sign an autograph for your kid, right? There's no sort of, it's like, well, is that real? Is that fair? That's supposed to change moving forward. So anything now that's over $600, that includes in the aggregate, right? So let's say that PHNX wanted to pay an athlete $300 today and $300 a month from now, and then $300 another month after that. Well, that's in the aggregate $900. So that counts, or supposed to count. So any third-party deal should be regulated by what's called now the CSC, or the College Sports Commission, which is run by Deloitte. It's an entirely separate entity outside of the NCAA. They're the new enforcement arm. And they run through this system called NIL Go, which is where you report all these deals, and they're supposed to approve them or not approve them. Now, originally, they called it fair market value, right? Which is a common term in business used usually for like philanthropic efforts, or like if you go to a charity auction, right, and you bid on something, you'll see it'll say underneath it, fair market value is this amount of money. They've changed that the second they went live to now called compensation range analysis, which I find interesting because they're basically saying nobody can determine fair market value, and neither can we. Because if I'm a business, like let's say, and to go away from ESU for a second, let's say I'm a car dealership in Stillwater, and I want to pay my quarterback of the Sooner or not Sooners of the Cowboys $100,000, right, to be on my billboard. Who is Deloitte or the CSC to say that that's not a fair investment on the part of the business? They can't do that. How could they do that? Like if I'm a private business, not party to the settlement, because they're not, I could do whatever I want with my money, right? And so I think that's where you're going to run into an interesting area here is like, how enforceable is this? And how much do athletic departments or third parties try to go outside of it? I mean, I think you may have seen, may have not seen, but like the Texas A&M AD, I think as recently as yesterday, had a whole interview where he was like, hey, our main focus moving forward is how do we go beyond the 20.5, right? Like how do we add these sort of compensation range analysis deals in order to increase that number? And so that's where I think fans might get a bit frustrated with some of this stuff is that like, yes, it's cool that the 20.5 is the number for year one. It does go up 4% each year after that. But let's just keep 20.5 in the mix. Yeah, it's great that we have this sort of cap, but it's not going to stop anybody from going outside of it. And actually, I think what's interesting is it creates a space for somebody like ASU to be, no pun intended, innovative and like creative. Like, how do you want to like go around that? How do you want to offer opportunities, whether it be for Olympic sport athletes? So maybe you focus your revenue share on like football, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball. Like, how do you then use the rest of your businesses to funnel money to track and field or lacrosse? Like, it's such an open space. I think that's what makes it the most interesting part.
The NIL Go stuff is one of the more interesting aspects I feel to this because you kind of bring up it's like, oh, how do you really regulate this? Because those NIL deals, they have to meet a certain threshold. But like if it's like $600, I think is the amount, then it's up to the athlete to self-report that $600, correct? What is in theory stopping an athlete from getting more than $600 and then just keeping that to themselves and not reporting it to to the NIL Go?
I mean, nothing. Like in my view of it, like far beyond when I was involved with NIL, like going back 15 years, I've worked in contracts. That's what I do for a living. Just about every marketing agreement, and that's what NIL is. It's marketing, right? It's no different than any other influencer agreement. Like I am paying to use your name, image, and likeness. That's what they all are. Every marketing agreement I've ever worked on has a very strict confidentiality clause in it, and the reason is because if I'm, business X, I'm a car dealership, and I want to pay $2,000 for Anthony Totri's name, image, and likeness. I don't want that to be public because then my competitor could just pay you $5,000.
Yeah.
And then they just take it, right? And so like now we're in this huge bidding war that I don't want to be in. And so if I'm a business, a third party business, now I would never like encourage a fight for no reason, right? Like we would obviously always be like, well, you're supposed to report it. So, but if they're like, no, I'm not going to do that, I wouldn't advise my client to be in material breach of a contract by reporting it and violating the confidentiality clause. And then how is Deloitte or the CSC, how are they going to know about that? Like, are they going to monitor every D1 athlete's Instagram?
Which is just
and look? There's no way. There's just no chance. It doesn't make any sense. And then what if you get into a situation, and again, I'm not trying to pick a fight here, but it is a worthwhile conversation to have. Like, imagine if, and I'll take ASU out of it because although it's ASU podcast and I'm on Sun Devil, I never want to sort of seem as though I'm representing ASU. Yeah. So just to take a bit of a different example, let's say that you're a car dealership in Ann Arbor, Michigan, right? And you want to pay the quarterback of Michigan $15,000 to be on your billboard. And you say, I don't want my competitor to know about it, so we're putting in this confidentiality clause. And they agree. So then they don't report it to NIL Go, right? Because they don't want to be in material breach of the contract. Cool. Let's say somehow Deloitte and the CSC find out about that. And they go to Michigan. And they say, hey, Michigan, your quarterback is in violation of this settlement. He didn't report it. You got to take action against him. Are you telling me that the athletic director of Michigan is going to go out in front of media the Friday before the Ohio State game and say, hey, sorry, guys, sorry, season ticket holders, sorry, donors, quarterback can't play against Ohio State tomorrow, failed to report a deal? Is that going to happen?
Absolutely.
And then if it does, what happens if that quarterback then goes in front of the media the next day and says, I forgot. I was studying for finals. I was getting ready for Ohio State. I forgot. My fault. Then what? Like this, so that's where I think it's a very small example or anecdotal, but that's where like this stuff isn't settled yet, because all of that stuff has to get litigated. Like there's going to have to be the case I just talked about is going to happen. Now, is it going to happen at ASU? Probably not. I hope not. It's a pretty good athletic department, as you know, under the leadership today. But is it going to happen somewhere in the country? Of course.
Yeah. Of
course it will. And so how do we get through that? I think that's the part where like this seems like it's all done, but it's not even close.
Some of it just feels like it was like the NCAA and everybody was getting just pressed so hard about, okay, we need rules and regulations, that they just kind of threw something together. And I guess threw something together is not necessarily true, because it was a while coming, but it does feel like there are still so many holes in all of this, right? Like you had brought up, and like I had seen before, like everyone now in Division I is going to be, in theory, playing with $20.5 million. But if you want to build a championship level team, like that's going to cost you way, way north of $20.5 million. Final question on the NIL Go side of things. In terms of like infractions and consequences and all that type of stuff, because it does feel so loose and there are so many loopholes in this, do you feel like, just in your educated guess, in your opinion, that specifically is why the NCAA didn't really want to be, the iron fist here and be the body in charge to actually lay down punishments?
They didn't want to be, or they just failed. I'm not sure. Honestly, like I can't think of much of an example of an organization that has fallen the way they've fallen. I mean, over the last few years, they just proved to be inept. Like they just can't do anything. And it's not a criticism of any individual person, certainly not of the organization's schools, but like they just failed. And so I think this is a product of that. It's like we need something else to come out of this that helps to enforce these things and proves to be an arm that doesn't exist within the NCAA for whatever reason. I will say, I think, to your point, like you bring up, like, well, the 20.5 million is what you need to have a competitive program, right? I think you are probably intentionally or unintentionally talking about like football, but like think about what you need to be like a competitive athletic department. Yeah. Way more than that, right? Like if you want to compete for titles, which ASU, I mean, unbelievable in the last year, right? Between volleyball, football, swim and dive, like baseball and softball making regionals, like great, tremendous progress, especially given where they were in the NIL space. But like if you want to, in revenue share, if you want to be competitive at an athletic department, it's way more than 20.5, way more. Now, I will say on the NIL Go side, because you brought it up, like I've had 3 deals submitted so far, which is in 3 weeks, is not a ton, but so far, very encouraging. Like they have all been submitted and accepted within, like, honestly, 60 seconds, which tells me there's some level of like automation, probably, right? These were not $600 or $601 deals, so but they also weren't $100,000. So my guess is probably there's some level set up in the back end there where it's like a threshold under this amount, just like auto improve, which is good. Like that's encouraging, because the thought that they were going to sit there, to your point, and be like, every $601 deal, let's go ahead and review that, like impossible. So a good sign. I know they hired the CS, I can't remember his name, you may know, but this new CSE chairman or CEO came from Major League Baseball.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't either, but I mean, seems to be, this is his background, is like enforcement at the pro level at MLB. So we'll see. I think it's encouraging, but it's got holes in it, and we're going to see where it goes.
I guess that's all you can really hope for, right? Is just that it's encouraging at this state. A couple more questions, then we'll get you out of here. I know, again, like we had talked about earlier, we could have this conversation for hours upon hours, and still I feel like it could continue to go on. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about ASU baseball and just how that program has kind of evolved in terms of NIL and what you've seen from the athletes that you represent. I think this specifically is a really, really unique program to kind of monitor and follow, given where it's at with Willie Bloomquist and where he stands as the head coach of ASU baseball. Peter, it does feel like we've seen just this offseason for ASU baseball kind of take off just a little bit in terms of being able to attract more talent, being able to get maybe some bigger names at bigger positions. And Willie's been pretty vocal. I would say maybe the most vocal of any ASU coach outside of Kenny in terms of like, hey, this is what we need for NIL. And now it feels like, okay, like they're starting to get that a little bit. Would you kind of feel that same sentiment?
I love Willie. I'm an old school ASU baseball guy. Like, I think it is the true, I know it's been a long time, but like the true blue blood program of the entire athletic department. Like, it really is. That's what I grew up on. Going to Packard and going to those games and watching guys like Davis and Jason Kipnis and those guys from my time. But yeah, it's interesting. I think like baseball is one of those in between sports when it comes to all this NIL and rev share stuff, where there are schools like, and this is part of I think what we haven't talked about yet with the rev share, right? Which is where if you're a school like, let's take Gonzaga in basketball or Long Beach State in baseball, right, where like you historically have a really good program, but you don't have anything else to feed. There's no football, there's no real competitive hockey program. Women's basketball is an afterthought. Like, then you're still allowed up to 20.5 million to spend, but you don't have a lot to spend it on. Now, are they going to be able to raise 20.5 million in those schools? Probably not, right? But could they spend it directly into just those programs? Yes. Versus if you're an ASU, you've got a lot of sports, a lot of mouths to feed. So it's very different. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But when it comes back to ASU baseball, I think the offering of 34 scholarships up from 11.4 is a very interesting and strategic move. Not everybody's going to do that. That does take away, just so people know, from your allotment of the 20.5. So that's about 2 million. In adding those additional scholarships it counts against. So you're already at 18.5 by doing that. But by doing that, you're making a strategic play that, like, hey, if we offer 34 full rides for baseball and you get to come to a historic blue blood program like ASU and you get to be in the Valley and you get to enjoy the scenery of ASU and you get to play at like Muni, like, it's a more strategic investment than it is like, well, what if we broke off 500 grand of the revenue share for baseball? We played 2 good outfielders and 1 pitcher. Yeah. Like, do we get a better program? Yes or no? So it's a very strategic move. I mean, I think baseball is just teetering on the edge of like getting back to where we need to get to. And I personally, and I don't often weigh into this stuff because it's not my purview, but like I'm a big Willie Bloomquist fan. I love the old school kind of approach. I think he seems to have evolved on the NIL stuff a lot. But hopefully this revenue sharing era helps. But we'll see. I mean, baseball it's not football. It's not women's basketball in terms of the NIL. We're not seeing like, now there's exceptions, but we're not seeing like, oh yeah, everybody on the baseball team just expects $300,000 the way you would expect on a basketball team, where like that's the basement. So I think there's opportunity there. But I don't know. I'm excited about ASU baseball.
Certainly interesting to monitor this season as the rest of the off season goes by. Peter, last question for you before we get you out of here. We've talked about where NIL was. We've talked about where it's currently at with the House settlement and revenue sharing. Where do you think the whole thing of NIL is heading? And I know that's a big question with a bunch of different avenues, but if you had to take an educated guess on it.
I think eventually employment or some level of collective bargaining. I think there's a case to watch for, which is Jackson versus NCAA. That's probably the new house, and that centers around employment. That's very deep in the pipeline. So schools don't want employment. I understand why they don't. I totally get that. Especially because you're talking about, like, if you were to make, it's the state of Arizona, right? ASU is not or any other school, MSU or OSU, is not like an independent entity. It's part of the state, right? It's governed by the Board of Regents. Like, so if you made a softball player an employee tomorrow, she's no different than like a state trooper.
Yeah.
Like they're employees of the state. They're employees of the state of Arizona. That's crazy. Yeah. But I do think it's going that way because the problem with these deals is that they're not collectively bargained. And so they don't have a seat at the table. Now they have agents like me, but not everybody does. Certainly not everybody does. And they don't really have a voice. And so you see these things, and I wish I could share it with you, but a lot of these revenue share agreements, particularly the Big Ten has a boilerplate one, which all the schools use. But even some of the ones in the SEC, really all the Power Four, they read like employment agreements. Like if I were to sit down and show you one tomorrow, you would be like, this feels like a contract to be an employee of this organization, right? Down to the same things that professional contracts have, morality clauses, the ability to, and this is crazy, but hopefully people have good agents, the ability to lever up and down the costs. So like, for example, I'm going to guarantee you $200,000 for next year, except if your name and likeness value changes, I can drop that payment or I can increase it, which is wild. It needs to be negotiated, but that's in these agreements. Like all that stuff, that's employment. Like that, if you do this, we will pay you that. If you don't do this, you can't be here anymore. And so I think we've got to get around that. And that's where this thing is like, it still has holes in it. And I don't know where it's going to go. I'm not going to sit here and predict like this is what's going to happen. I'm not smart enough to do that. But like there's so many unanswered questions. Title IX is a big part of it. We haven't really talked about how does that play in. So I would anticipate one of two things happens in the next 2 or 3 years, which is one, the dust settles on house. We figure out exactly how this all works, who's paying what, who's not. Smart teams will have savvy general managers. They'll lever up and level down who they pay based off what year and how the team's looking, et cetera. Other teams will fall behind because they're not prepared. But then it'll settle, and then I think we'll see a bunch of litigation. Title IX litigation, we'll see antitrust litigation, like it'll just go on and on employment. But I think in a few years we end up in a place, hopefully, where there's some degree of collective bargaining that allows these rules to be codified beyond just like, well, that's the settlement. Because this isn't talked about either, right? It's like the settlement class doesn't include incoming freshmen for next year. They're not part of the class. They're not in it. So they're still subject to injunctive relief or revenue share if they want it, but they don't have to abide by the rules of the settlement. They're not part of it. Wow. So this thing is going to go in a million different directions. It's not, and that's the part I worry about a little bit with fans. I'm always long-winded here, but like is I think they just tend to think, well, this is it. These are the new rules. This is how it's going to be. And it's just not.
It's wildly interesting. Again, something to always keep an eye on is NIL. Follow the money at all times. Peter, we appreciate you taking the time today. Of course, the founder of Activate Sports Management. Anytime, any place, we're glad to have you on to talk NIL, man.
I think, dude, I've known you guys for years, and I think this is the first time I've actually been on.
I know.
So it's good to finally talk to you guys. I know. Well, appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate you, man. That was, guys, that is going to do it for today's episode of the PHNX Sun Devils Show. Make sure you hit that like button. You hit the subscribe button on your way out. And if you enjoyed today's content, give us a follow at PHNX_Sun Devils. You can follow me at Anthony_Totri. You can follow the Deli Man on social at Shane Dief. And we will see you guys on Thursday. But as always, go Devils. Peace.
We all silly like